This is St Francis Friary, Gorton, on the outskirts of Manchester, and about a decade and a half ago it was derelict, saved because of an inspirational lady called Elaine Griffiths. She nominated it to the World Monuments Watch and found £6.5 million to invest in turning it back into a building so useful it's already generated £8.5 million for the local community. And I want to find out how she did it. Elaine, the sound of workmen reverberates today at Gorton, but what did you find when you first saw the monastery?
Well, I first came here in September 1996 and I just couldn't believe the scale of the place and also the extent of the dereliction here. I could hardly believe that the Franciscans had only left in 1989 and yet this building was completely ruined. So over the years, and it had only been sort of 7 short years, you honestly would have thought it had been empty for 50.
So what steps did you take to turn this derelict building into a project?
Well, we really didn't have a clue what we were doing. We'd never done anything like this at all. We'd never done any fundraising and we didn't really understand the complexities of working on a heritage building. But we were very fortunate that we got advice from a number of heritage specialists, and people like the Victorian Society helped us, and they gave us advice and told us to go and talk to English Heritage. And in those days, it was the early days of the Heritage Lottery Fund, but we were given some glimmer of hope that we might be able to apply for substantial grants from the Heritage Lottery Fund. So we started a very long journey.
So what difference did World Monuments Watch listing make?
The World Monuments Fund watch listing made all the difference to this project. If we hadn't been listed, I doubt if we'd be standing here today. It was the one thing that changed the fortunes of the project, because the building had been in the hands of receivers following the collapse of the apartment scheme, and literally we couldn't raise any more funds at all because we didn't have ownership of the place. So the listing enabled us to get lots of positive publicity, and it enabled us to go and negotiate with the receivers and ultimately buy the building for £1.
Now, how did you bring the local community with you? How did you engage them?
When we first came here and we realised how awful the building was and what a dreadful state it was almost like in the too difficult to do pile. But we thought, no, this is important. It was important. I got involved because my husband had been an altar boy here. It was very important to his family and all the relatives locally, so we thought we needed to talk to local people. And we had a gathering of the local community, and it was true that there was a lot of emotion and support for the project in the community. In terms of the investment in the fabric, the energy, and not to mention the hundreds of years of prayer and people's lives that are invested in this space, this is a magical monastery. You could never build it again. These places need to be treasured. And that's where the campaign began. And from a handful of volunteers, we ended up getting a friend scheme together of over 1,000 friends. So the community have supported us all the way through. And there are many, many hours of donated time that have gone into this project. And our volunteers were awarded the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service this year, so we're very proud of them.
Did you ever feel like giving up?
There were many, many times we felt like just throwing in the towel and giving up completely when we had no money and we had our hopes dashed because we hadn't succeeded with particular funding bids. When we managed to achieve the World Monuments Fund watch listing, that was such a major boost for the campaign.
Maybe an apt question for a building like this, but were there any guardian angels who helped you along the way?
This project's been really interesting because we've from time to time had uncanny things happen and people turning up at exactly the right time. Sometimes it's been when we needed financial support, and one of the classic cases is the World Monuments Fund, and that £70,000 grant that we managed to achieve from the World Monuments Fund listing through American Express was the thing that kept us going in those first early years.
So who gets to use Gorton?
The amazing thing about the building now is that it's used by everybody for all kinds of things. So it's no longer consecrated, it's not an official religious place of worship, although we do use it for spiritual uses. It's still amazing sacred space, but it's actually available to everybody for everything from weddings right through to classical concerts to conferences and events. It's just the most beautiful, flexible space, and we say it's sort of like the 3 C's. It's used for corporate use in order to generate a sustainable income, for cultural use in terms of the space to be used for all kinds of drama, art, music events, and also the other C is community use, and that allows us to give back to other charities locally as well because they can use this space on a subsidised basis.